Previously on Man Children of the Atom. We are lucky this time to have our first guest. John, say hello.
When do I talk? Oh, I talk now. Okay.
Did Crash get red pilled? Did Crash Bandicoot
Listen,
get real into the
there was a
movement?
podcast that he was on that resurfaced recently, and he said some really messed
Oh,
up
no.
things.
Look at this freak. He's college educated, but his hands are big. I've got Shi'ar diarrhea again. I'm out of commission
It's
this
called
week.
Shi'ar.
Shi'ar.
Read a book. You taught me fellatio, and I didn't know if that was important.
It will be. All right, welcome to Man Children of the Atom. This is our 6th episode talking about episode 6 of X-Men 97, Lifedeath Part 2. I'm Matt, and I'm here with Brett. Brett, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
I was listening, Brett, recently to one of our favorite shared podcasts, and they were talking about the episode about the original X-Men movie from, when was that, 2000? Did it come out?
Yeah, I think that's right at the turn there, right at the turn of the century, 2000.
Yeah, and I don't know, just maybe while it is not, there are certainly flaws, how much of a solid core of a movie it is, and how many good performances there are in it, and maybe when we run out of X-Men 97, maybe we should take a look at some of the movies together.
Ooh, I would love to do that. Mainly because I'm such a contrarian these days when it comes to pretty much every superhero movie. I didn't mean to become this person. It just sort of happened over time.
Well, what's interesting is it's from the era before like superhero movies were an industry, or as Scorsese calls them, an amusement park.
Oh, this was that movie as well as Blade, and then I think a year or two later, definitely a year later, Spider-Man, yes, because they famously had to remove the World Trade Center scene.
Yep.
Those rose from the ashes of the Schumacher Batmans. So they were very much, it was the industry very much sticking its toe back into the waters of superhero cinema.
Yeah. So we'll see that. And I know last time you and John talked about the show Legion briefly, and we could also go in that direction. So viewers, rest assured, we may run out of X-Men 97 at some point, but not of things to talk about.
Oh, I mean, I would even do the original show.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up. We'd be there a while.
Yes, we would. Yeah, especially with our schedule.
Yeah, no kidding.
But episode 6, Life Death Part 2.
Yeah, we can just dive right in.
Your initial impressions of this one, because I've watched it like one full time, paying attention, taking notes, and I just sort of had it in the background before we started. And I have a pretty firm feeling where I feel with this, where I stand with this one. What about you?
I knew going into it that it wasn't my favorite of the season, but on the rewatch, even though there are things I liked, I actually put it, I think, a hair below the Motendo one. I didn't love this episode. This may actually be the weakest one, not by a huge margin, but neck and neck.
I agree. I think that the pacing in it is very weird.
Yep.
Although it does have some stuff that I really dig, which we'll get into. It doesn't really build to anything. It is very much a bridge episode.
Yep.
We're just sort of like catching up with Xavier. We're finishing off the life-death storyline. And so there really isn't any like momentum to it because we just come off of this massive episode 5 where this crazy earth-shattering stuff happens. And then we have like the conclusion to life-death. We have this sort of elongated, like getting Xavier back into the fold. And so it does feel very, very bridgy in a way that sometimes can work, but I don't think works very well here.
Yeah. One of the jobs it's trying to do is being the breather episode after that. The cataclysmic events of episode 5 doesn't feel like a breather. It does feel like kind of maybe not stalling. You're right. I think a bridge maybe is, Brett, you're right, a right word for that. But I don't know. I just felt a little bored with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. And you know what? I think hurts it is the voice actor for Xavier is not a compelling voice actor.
Nope. I was going to get there with you too.
He's very like it's almost like somebody doing like an impression of Xavier if they're trying to make fun of him in a way, where he's extra weepy sounding. He's very soft spoken.
I actually agree with that.
Yeah, he needs a little bit more gusto, especially since his counterpoint in this Magneto is just off the charts, incredible.
You're not kidding. It makes me wonder. So my takeaway from this episode, one of my takeaways is I don't like this version of Xavier in X-Men 97. There's something about him where he comes across as kind of like patronizing and naive at the same time, and like, yeah, sort of self-absorbed in a way. And I wonder if that's not a failure per se. There's a part of me that thinks the writing crew they don't like Xavier, and they wrote him as a character that they're not really behind, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean,
like, this is a real Magneto was right feeling season.
Oh, big time. Yeah, he doesn't really have, and maybe it'll change upon rewatches of the subsequent episodes, but he just feels very, like not condescending, but there is something very ineffectual about him.
Yeah.
And yet he's very smarmy in a way.
He's a little smirky. He's not earnest like either old X-Men cartoon Xavier or even Patrick Stewart Xavier.
Well, Pat Stewart is the best Xavier.
Sure. Well, yeah, unassailable, certainly.
But let's get into this. We do start with something that I think is very cool. We get some Star Wars in our X-Men.
Wait. You're jumping ahead a little bit.
I always jump ahead. What did I do?
I want to acknowledge that.
Oh yeah.
My heart leapt a little bit when Nightcrawler got his own title card. Because
yes,
I love Nightcrawler.
And they give him the swords, which is extra badass.
Yeah, they sure do. I have liked throughout this season that the theme song, the scenes they use, the title cards, it's dynamic, right? It moves with
big time
with the show, and I've appreciated that. And it just, Nightcrawler specifically, it's always delightful.
I would almost like, I was thinking about this today, if someone would put together like a cut of all the changes that take place from like episode 1. This is what it is originally. Episode 2. This is the things they add in. Episode 3, this is the things they add in. Because like for my own, like I don't remember what each one was.
Right.
And so I'm like, oh, did they show Apocalypse last time? Oh, did they show this one last time? So I'm constantly starting every episode with like a double take of like, oh, which scenes did they add to this opening montage that wasn't there last time?
And even what adjustments did they make musically? I mean, that would actually complicate the ability, because I had in my mind this like disaster of a 10-way split screen of just the song going, but then seeing them all side by side. But then I was like, no, they actually, there's slight differences to the music too.
Yeah, they really do. Like this one actually begins with like a heartbeat. Did you notice that?
I sure did notice that, and I appreciated it.
It's cool stuff like that. But the battle.
Space.
We get in. I really dig the color palette they use for space and the Shi'ar stuff.
Yeah.
It made me wish that this team would do like a Silver Surfer show and just like a trippy, like we're going to different worlds and we're checking out different crazy stuff.
Okay.
I like this opening action sequence, and I really dig. I wrote her name down. The voice actress for Deathbird her name is Carrie Kabanov.
Oh, she was great.
Yeah, I think she plays it with like there's like a playfulness in her voice that I think is very fun.
Yeah, and there's enough like viciousness imbued in the lines, but without seeming like one note. Like she does a really good job of this character clearly is aggressive and violent, but not mindless in that. Not like a saber tooth or something like that.
Yeah, she has a few lines that are sort of like dripping with like condescension that I really dig.
and space racism.
Oh yeah, she's quite racist.
That's like the whole Shi'ar thing is like space racism, but space
yeah, I know that. Yeah, they're pretty bad. We and I mean that's at least throughout the entire episode. But she does have this great line. She knocks down Ronan and she says, "Be honored to fall at my feet, for you shall be memorialized as the corpse poem which I posed." It's like such a vicious way to be like, they're gonna remember you because when they draw my picture, my foot's gonna be on your face. It's a line that really like her voice acting like matches that bravado. So I think she's sort of the MVP of this episode.
I'm inclined to agree with that. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, because I sure didn't, but I read it after the fact when it was. So I guess one of the Imperial Guard is other people who were familiar with this run of the comics were saying that one of them was a character named Vulcan, who was the lost Summers brother. Who was?
Oh, I didn't. This is true. I did not notice him in that crew. Yeah,
and I didn't know what the character. I've heard reference to that being a character from an era of the books that I never read, so I didn't visually know what to look for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, People were saying that there's this little cameo from the other Summers brother.
Oh, I'll have to go back and check it out. But I'm glad you mentioned the comics.
Yep.
Because we can open up briefly
The X-Files.
The X-Files, and we can talk a little bit about Deathbird here.
I would love to.
Something I did not realize about Deathbird, Matthew, is that she actually debuted. She debuted not in the X-Men, but in. Do you know her first comic?
Was it Ms. Marvel?
It was Miss Marvel. How did you know that?
The only reason I thought it was because that era when Deathbird was introduced was also when Carol Danvers was hanging out with the X-Men a lot.
She is hanging out with them quite a bit, and it's back when I don't know how frequently Chris Claremont was writing the Miss Marvel comics, but he wrote this is Miss Marvel number 9 in, I guess, September of 1977. Keith Pollard was the artist. And then she doesn't appear in X-Men until 81. So she's just kind of a space character in the Miss Marvel wing of the Marvel Universe for a while. And then 4 years later shows up in X-Men. And her Wikipedia page is interesting because it really runs through. I didn't realize how she just keeps coming back into the X-Men's lives. But I've always liked her. I think she has a pretty badass look.
She does.
And I think they do a good job. Really, again, I've said in the show before, I have a soft spot for very flamboyant, arrogant characters, especially when they're the villains. I think she's a good example of that.
She's good, and I like kind of the and I don't know if this was the original conceptualization or like a retcon, an early retcon, but that her deal is kind of in the same way as like Wolverine or Beast or something, that she is like kind of a genetic mutant herself of the Shi'ar that's more like their ancestry, like their hair, like a more primitive form of their alien race.
Yeah, she has like an atavistic gene or something that makes her appear more bird-like.
Yeah,
which is a great line later on where she's just totally disgusted that humans have evolved from apes. I think it's very funny.
I like multiple things I want to say. So the Ms. Marvel thing. Now I didn't know this until recently, and I'll admit my look into it was only very cursory. But what I think I read somewhere that like the whole concept behind the Ms. Marvel stuff was like to do with like the feminist movements as they were understood at the time, and she's named Ms. Marvel after Ms. Magazine, and Mystique started as a Ms. Marvel villain too, and she was like named after the feminine Mystique. There's just a whole layer to this that I had not been aware of at all.
Oh, interesting. I did not know this either. I'm gonna have to look into this Wikipedia rabbit hole later.
We'll have to look into it.
Certainly not tonight, but maybe on my Friday. And
I'm quite certain I got the wrong author's name, but my brain is escaping me on who wrote the feminine Mystique. There's all of our many listeners are screaming at their screens right now at their
they're
phones
all big
and
readers.
And then the other thing I want to say is just on the theme of the Shi'ar. This goes at it a little harder, like the problems with them as a culture being imperialistic and colonial. That it was a little, I think, less criticized when they were introduced. And I remember just thinking like, it's a good concept. Like they're a cool looking alien species. Like having this like avian ancestry is just different enough while still being kind of familiar that it's like, there's something compelling in that, I think. And I think they've done a good job in the books and in this show with like their sense of like their architecture and just it being just kind of this interesting alien civilization, even if it does have its problems.
They've always been, especially in the comics, a set of characters or, a part of the universe, the Marvel universe, that feels very fleshed out. Yeah. The ships have a very distinct look to them. Like you said, the characters themselves have a distinct look to them. And even the idea of like, there's this royal political hierarchy, and then they have like the guards that are just sort of like aliens from all different places.
All from like Shi'ar colonies, basically.
Yeah. And so it's always felt very like they thought about this and they really gave themselves enough world building to really continue to grow off of. And so when you bump into them in the comic books, it always feels like you're jumping into something that has like a lot of backstory to it, even if you don't know that backstory.
Yeah.
There's a sense of like you're entering a world that is well thought out.
Yeah, the world building there is really good. It's, probably the example is like the crazy backstory that was in the mind of like J.R.R. Tolkien when he was writing his Middle Earth stuff. But like clearly this isn't to that level of depth. This is like more of like the pulpy level of that, or even like some like maybe the Star Trek kind of alien race backstories and world building. But I think it's very effective.
I've always liked the when X-Men go into space, just because they've always had this is true of comic books anyway, but there's always just an opportunity to be like, here's a bunch of really cool shit. Here's this giant, like frog guy. Here's this giant gray Martian looking dude.
Yeah.
Here's the robot with the little robot on his back. He was always a favorite of mine.
Warstar.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, speaking of the Imperial Guard, who I have always liked, another thing, like, again, I didn't know at the time because I wasn't as much a DC guy, but apparently they were fairly directly inspired by one of the like younger DC teams, not the Justice League, but like whatever one of the younger versions of that is.
Teen Titans?
I don't think that. I think it's still a Justice League in the name. Is JLA something?
Oh, I bet Legion of Superheroes, probably.
Maybe something like that. But like Gladiator was based on, I guess, Superboy, and like all of the Imperial Guard kind of have like an XB that they're inspired by from this whatever team it was on in DC, which I know you've read a little more DC than I have.
Yeah, there's a comic book, I think it's called Legion of Superheroes, where it basically takes place like thousands of years in the future.
Okay.
And so there's a lot of fun issues where like they come back in time and they're like, oh my God, Superman, you're a legend. We have all these books about you, stuff like that. And there's like Brainiac number 13 or something is one of the members. But I haven't read a lot of those books. But again, you throw me into a world where you have a bunch of creative people just doing weird creative shit, and I'm in.
And we're happy. Yeah.
All right. So Lalandra is in her team are about to just execute these Kree. She sticks the heel of her boot into Ronan's face and actually draws blood, which is a cool little shot. And it gets interrupted by this very fat butler guy who's like, your sister needs to have a big message right now.
Now the heel to the face, that whole thing. The people who got real excited online about that real tall lady from that Resident Evil game, do you think they saw that and like a little shiver went up their spine?
Oh, a shiver went up their spine when that dude got a foot in his face.
Oh, yeah.
And there's a line coming up later in this episode that I think gave them a real shiver.
Oh, the pet.
We'll
get there, yeah.
So this was actually ridiculous to me.
Yep.
So this empire is at war with the Kree, which is another massive
one of the other big three civilizations
entity.
Yeah.
And this lady, the queen, is like, hey everybody, I know we're at war.
This is
everybody
my
pause.
boyfriend.
Yeah, I've got big news. Here's my human boyfriend. We're getting married.
Isn't he
the
great?
The balls on this woman.
I love him. Isn't he great? There's a good friend of mine who I met freshman year of college. We've been friends ever since then. She's been in a relationship with another one of my best friends for almost that entire time. Went through a phase where, like, partially in jest, but a little bit not, would talk about, like, just talk about my boyfriend. And, like, it past the point where the joke was funny, but it was like, sure. That's who I thought of with this Lalandra bit. Where, yeah, they're at war, and she's like, "Look at my boyfriend." It's like, read the fucking room, Lalandra.
It's insulting. Like, she is projecting this hologram probably to like labor camps, like the way these people operate.
Right.
I can't believe there isn't an uprising.
Well, when you say there isn't, do you mean there kind of is?
I was thinking more of like a worker revolution. Not so much
jockeying for power.
What's it called when I know it's fratricide when a brother kills a brother. What's it called when a sister kills a sister?
Sororicide?
Sororicide?
But it might just still be fratricide. That might just mean like sibling kill. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. We get Xavier in this sweet ass suit.
Kind of.
I'm gonna not open it all the way, but I'm gonna peek into the X-Files and just let you know that issue 275, The Path Not Taken, we get basically this suit, but the color theme is different. Instead of gold, it's he has like a silver helmet.
Okay.
He's got a sweet blue cape and like a black suit. It's one of the first Jim Lee drawn
that makes sense.
Issues.
The look of the mask, that makes sense actually.
It's very Strife-esque.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, because at first when they showed, I was like, I that can't be anyone but Xavier, but why does he look like Strife?
Yeah, this one is very Strife-esque. It's actually it's a pretty good issue. Deathbird like brings the X-Men to her via Lena Chaney? I forget her name.
Leela Chaney, yeah.
Leela Chaney.
The singer teleporter, yeah.
Yeah. And she's like a galactic level teleporter.
Yeah.
Where she can go from different worlds as opposed to just across the room, which is a pretty cool power.
It is.
And there's a whole thing where she like tries to recruit them to help fight Xavier because Xavier might not be who they think he is. Oh. It's a fun little arc in that run of X-Men book. But she does introduce him as Professor Charles Xavier, and I'm wondering, does the title of Professor carry any weight with these people?
It's like someone from England coming to the U.S. and being like, "My boyfriend's a barrister."
Yes, I was thinking barrister. Like, he serves coffee to people. Like
Yeah, and I'll say so that the outfit looks like the outfit, but throughout the entire episode, there's something weird in the way they draw his face. I don't know. It doesn't look quite right.
It's very thin in a way.
Kind of, yeah. I can't put my finger on it.
I think they're really trying to emphasize the gentleness of Xavier and make that as a foil to Magneto. But what it just does is it makes him this like effete nothing, and it's like, well, yeah. Magneto would steamroll this dude. Like, it doesn't feel like you have to have for this guy to be the guy that had like the chutzpah to put together the X-Men and like train the X-Men and not just have this dream, but be like, I'm gonna try and force birth this dream into life. Like, yeah. He has to have more vigor than what he has in the show, which is, I think, like this one, he just seems like a beaten down substitute teacher. Where I'm like, this guy's just he's gone to like the home for a while because the kids just tortured him so much, and he's come back. He's very soft spoken now.
He is about 2 steps away from being like Aunt May used to be portrayed in the old Spider-Man books of like, oh, I'm worried about my nephew Peter. I hope I don't faint again.
Yes, that is what he's like there.
And it's I agree, but there needs to be, for the dynamic between Xavier and Magneto and like their visions to work, they do need to be kind of presented as like opposite and equal forces.
Yes.
And interesting to see where the other characters fall and shift between them at like midpoints, and how does Cyclops find his own vision, and how does Storm find her own vision? Like that's interesting when they have these like 2 compelling endpoints to that continuum. Mm-hmm. And they don't make Xavier's end very compelling.
No, they don't. But I getting back to the theme of, even though I'm not crazy about this episode, neither of us are, and it's kind of boring, I do think that just the visuals, they're going through this garden that is being tended to by these horse people.
Yes.
It looks pretty rad, and it reminds me, I'm going to be a real geek here, it reminds me of one of my favorite video games, the World of Warcraft. They have a lot of zones in that game that have this sort of color palette, this
like that blue,
not neon,
like not neon, like more of like an ultraviolet kind of.
Yes,
and phosphorescent kind of glow on some of these plants. The horse gardeners made me think of, now Brett, you're a movie guy, so maybe you've seen this. Was it Sorry to Bother You?
With the were they centaurs? Yes, that
like reverse centaurs.
If you're out there,
yeah.
If you're out there, Sorry to Bother You by, do you know his name?
Bootsy Collins, I think.
Is it Boots Riley?
Maybe it is Boots Riley. Maybe Bootsy Collins is a funk musician. Boots Riley. Yeah. Yes. If you like good movies and don't like capitalism very much, this is a great, surreal, awesome movie.
Yeah, it has Tessa Thompson in it. She's really good in it.
It does. Yes.
But yeah, that's a great movie to sit back to with a tall drink of water, because it's one of my favorite things in movies, where it starts out fairly regular-ish, and then like every 10 minutes it gets more and more absurd and bizarre.
Yes.
So if you can time it right, things are getting crazier in the movie as things are getting crazier in your head, and it's a good time.
Agreed.
We have this in this garden. I like Xavier's not too happy about having to do this performative jingoism.
No.
He's but you know what though? This dude referring to the X-Men repeatedly as his children is just creepy to me.
Yeah. Well, again, it's May Parker, my nephew Peter.
These are grown-ass people. They have a child. And he's like, my children.
Yeah.
My children, the X-Men.
Well, and having just, again, heard this thing about the original X-Men movie, what's the line in there? Like, I feel a great swell of sympathy for the poor soul who's, like, it's missing that confidence in them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he is very, like, a weeping willow in this. There's a very telling line in this, where he's talking about, like, being torn about wanting to go back and see his children. And the Landris says, yet families often mimic black holes, visit and risk being stuck in its ever-spiraling vacuum of dramas. Holy smokes. One of the writers is working something out there.
True. Also, I mean, look at her family. She's not wrong in her case. Ken and Deathbird are her siblings.
Both of her siblings are like genocidal level maniacs.
Yeah. Yeah, when Deathbird's the better one.
Yeah, referring to it as a vacuum of drama is maybe is underselling it.
Yes. And then I have it written here. I forget exactly where the line fits in, but so there's like the Shi'ar colonialism, but then Xavier kind of fallen in with the same mindset. Well, we'll teach the Kree. You're a teacher. We'll teach the Kree. And it's like, Jesus, how much did that veneer go onto so much of colonialism?
I wrote Bird Lady's Burden.
They even reference Kipling later. Yeah, it is.
They do reference Kipling later, yes. But to my credit, I wrote that before the Kipling line came up. You can educate them. And I got to tell you, there's something extra sinister between saying you can teach them and you can educate them.
Yeah.
Like there's that big E there, and educate is very ominous.
Agreed. Good word for it. My notes now go to the other storyline. I don't think there's that much more in these scenes before we get to checking in on Storm and Forge and the adversary.
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote the adversary after this lead in at the end of the previous episode where he bites Forge and critically wounds him. Adversary just spends this whole episode just being a dick, not really a menace.
Yeah, this is kind of one of the problems with how they broke up that episode is it never has any forward consistency and momentum because the adversary goes between like doing what you said, which is being this menacing force that like literally bites and nearly kills Forge, to just sort of being like this nuisance on Storm's shoulder.
Yeah.
Like it's just trying to nag her and get her to doubt herself, which is fine, but it's one of those things where like if it's not happening, if you move away from it and you do the space adventure and then you come back to it, it kind of breaks that tension, which is like, because you want to try and create the sense of paranoia, which they do. They have the coffin thing.
Yeah.
There's nice visuals again with the red lighting and everything.
Agreed.
But you can't create the sense of claustrophobia. And it's like this very intimate story about this adversary who's like, kind of like a manifestation of Storm's doubts and fears, and where it's in his cabin and where it's very close, and then it's this big space adventure. Like it obliterates that atmosphere, and then we're expected to kind of go back to it later. It's just not a good pairing with these two stories.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do agree with that, and I think there are some pieces of thematic resonance, but you're right, the disparity in the settings, and you're right, they don't quite.
Yeah, I did like the visual
of the coffin you mentioned. I do like that, and I like that compared to the original show. It used to be like, okay, anytime we just need to like write Storm out of a battle, we'll pin her under something and she'll be overcome by fear, but then here it is, it's her worst. But I feel like there's more nuance in the way they show her reacting to the experience,
and it's nice. I mean, it is pretty much contained to this episode. I'm sure there's an episode later where maybe this happens, but they really do get their money's worth because later on she's going through the cave.
Yep.
So it plays into the idea that the adversary is sort of like this idea that she is holding herself back.
Yeah.
Which the Storm story there is something compelling to it, but it just doesn't work completely. We do get Forge with his book of magic spells,
and the visual. Go ahead, you say it.
No, do it.
The visual language of like Forge's spellcasting here. I wonder if it was intentional, and in fact, I wonder if it was like mandated. There's a lot of like, think of like the Doctor Strange movies and stuff like that. This is what magic looks like in Marvel. It's these yellow glows and it's these circles and borders and like I feel like the visual language of Forge in that matches the visual language of like the Doctor Strange magic in the movies.
I thought it looked a little bit like when the Ghostbusters have a ghost in their proton pack.
Kind of look like that too. That's a good point.
Luckily, I trust this writing group. Thankfully, we don't dwell on the dicier aspects of Forge using native magic. We don't talk too much about that in this episode, which is nice.
It's not native; it was a correspondence course.
Yeah.
Now you brought up the Ghostbusters thing, that's really seemed like, because "Get out of my house, you damn demon" actually works in a Ghostbusters better than in the show.
Who would say that?
Forge.
In a Ghostbusters movie? Oh, Forge is in a Ghostbusters movie?
If Forge was in the Ghostbusters, him saying "Get out of my house, you damn demon" actually kind of works on theme.
Yeah, you know what? I take it. I'll do. I agree.
Yep.
We go from him getting rid of this demon, getting the damn demon out of his house, to back into space, and this is where we get an insane line. He speaks as if I'm your pet. ... Not an entirely displeasing thought. To which she responds, "Hush now. You may bark later." These people are into some intense role playing. They're turn to leash play.
I mean, they gave us the Gambit line last episode with the 2 always better than 3 always better, whatever it is, the threesome line. And now we're...
You know what, though? But Gambit's this sexy, probably bisexual hot guy from the swamps. You have Xavier talking about being this lady's pet.
Yeah.
That conjures all kinds of weird imagery.
Oh, absolutely.
This is a confirmed, like, this guy's a sub. This guy's into
Oh.
some dominance play.
Big time.
In some pretty intense ways.
Big time. Yeah, and I think there's just something about like when that's dropped in as they're walking up this thing. Like it does feel like a line that didn't. I'm not prudish. It's a line that I don't feel like needed to be there. Didn't really fit the scene. Like somebody wanted that line to be there.
Oh, they definitely did. I think it's just an attempt to give Xavier like another aspect to his character, which is fine. But it is just because it's almost like, hey, remember your old English teacher? He's into some pretty weird stuff. And it's like, well, I don't need to know that. I don't need to know that my college professor does this kind of stuff.
I call this spaceship the Star Pegger.
No.
It's like the Star Jammer, Landra.
We
Anyway.
get yeah, moving on. Well, we're going to move on from uncomfortable sexiness to uncomfortable racism.
Yeah.
Where we get a few euphemisms, the quiet part out loud, which for me, and I'm sure for you, always invokes that funny Simpsons joke with Krusty the Clown.
I know the memory's there. My brain is failing to load it. Go.
The quiet, let's just say it moved me to a bigger house. The quiet part out loud again.
Yes.
But it has gone from that to now a euphemism for insane racism.
Yeah. I don't know. I actually thought that line, both the initial and the return fire of it, like kind of pulled me out of the scene a little bit.
It's one of those things that we've talked about where when something feels like it was ripped right out of a tweet, it's like it's like too modern. That's in a way.
I mean, that's it. That's exactly it, Brett. And not just modern, right? It's not just the sense that it's like, here's this alien civilization. They're making that reference. Deathbird watched the Krusty episode.
Were they on social media when, one of our many politicians said something insanely racist and somebody commented on it? I do love that she refers to our neck of the woods as that Milky Way ghetto.
Oh, yeah.
That was very funny to me.
Yeah, well, the Earth is not highly regarded amongst the Shi'ar.
And that's a trope in science fiction that I always enjoy. You get me some trashy looking alien referring to Earth as a backwater planet. I'm laughing.
Yeah, it's good. And it's
speaking of, go ahead.
I do think it kind of sets up, the execution we could debate, but like the setup of what the Shi'ar's reception to Xavier will be, right? He's not from an enemy planet. It's not like a Romeo and Juliet thing. It's like, right. You brought him from where? Where did you meet this guy? Yes. That fucking dive planet?
Yeah. Speaking of sci-fi tropes, the Shi'ar, they also have a thing that always comes up. You mentioned Star Trek earlier.
Yeah.
Like every other episode, especially in that original run, these alien races always have these ridiculous challenges that they can do.
Oh yeah, the right of whatever it is.
There's always some sort of battle or some sort of sacred rite that you have to pass.
Yeah.
Is there an American equivalent to this?
A televised debate? I don't know.
I was thinking like you have to, or not that you have to, but you're like expected to ask your girlfriend's dad for permission to marry him.
To marry him?
Oh, I'm sorry. Marry.
Yes, if you're gonna marry your girlfriend's dad, you should get his permission to marry him.
Yeah, you probably should. I was gonna actually. The closest we get to this is probably fraternity hazings.
Kind of. Yeah.
You were in a frat.
I technically.
Did you have to do things like pick up an egg with your butt or something and carry it across the?
No, I realize it makes for a boring podcast. No, we were a no hazing fraternity. I wouldn't have joined if it was one. We goofed around on each other, not to that degree, but once we were all in together. But no, there was no hazing of new members. We were keenly aware of other chapters on our campus that did.
And you went to UConn.
Yes.
So I assumed that some of the people there were heinous to each other in those fraternities.
And the sororities, although it was the fraternities did like dumb, dangerous shit to each other. The sororities did like cut your soul cruel things to each other, and the ones that hazed.
What's one of the worst ones you've ever heard?
For the sororities?
Or just either one.
I mean, so many of the fraternity ones were just like things involving heavy drinking and homoeroticism.
Sure.
But the one from one of the sororities that, if it was true, was that they would have their new members like line up in their underwear, and the sisters would take turns, and maybe even with some of their boyfriends, that like drawing with markers all the things on their body that were not good enough, like marking them.
That feels like it's made up.
It may be. That was the rumor that one of them did that. It was a widely known rumor, but it could be just made up.
Whenever people are like, well, the girls, they strip down to the underwear, I'm immediately like, no, they don't. That's a movie thing. Girls don't have pillow fights and they don't strip down to the underwear with each other. It's just a thing we've made up because we. Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes they do, but that's a whole different.
This is to accomplish the humiliation of a person, which makes it, I think, more plausible.
Yeah, it's possible,
but
it's definitely
you're right.
possible.
It's unconfirmed. Right. It is definitely unconfirmed.
I mean, it is UConn, and you know how I feel about the Connecticut.
Oh, the Milky Way ghetto of Connecticut.
Yeah. the Milky Way ghetto of the Northeast,
as opposed to Shi'ar, Massachusetts, up here.
Oh yeah, we're the imperialist pigs.
I mean, kind of.
I mean, sure.
Massachusetts is the Shi'ar of New England.
Isn't New York the Shi'ar of New England? Wouldn't you think?
New York's not in New
It
England.
Is the. Yeah, I guess not.
You could make the case if New York was part of New England, but it's not.
Yeah, I mean, really, who are we competing against? Vermont, Maine.
No, I mean, New Hampshire's probably the Skrulls or maybe the Cree. I don't know.
You want to talk about the backwater of the planet? And I love New Hampshire. If we have any New Hampshire listeners, I go there all the time.
Yeah, all right, whatever state you're from, listeners, that's our favorite state.
Exactly right.
All the other ones are terrible.
Oh, awful! That the state across from you, awful.
Just the worst.
Everything they say about them is true. We get this scene with Gladiator and Professor X. You know what though? In addition to Professor X's voice not being great, I'm not crazy about Gladiator either.
The voice?
Yeah, he's too young. It sounds like there's a kid voicing him.
I'll give you that. It didn't bother me the way the Xavier voice did, but yeah.
No, well, Xavier is a bigger character, but I need a man playing Gladiator. Yeah. This guy sounds like a little boy.
I do. They got him right visually, though, I think. And in terms of how he looks when he uses his powers and stuff.
Yeah. Well, there's a great shot early on when he punches Ronan and it like flashes for a second. It's a cool little shot.
Yeah. And I like, they tie in the Shi'ar, what passes for a religion of the couple, the Shara and Kithri, forced to wed. And that's the myth that justifies their forced assimilation of other cultures. And the line about art in their culture being a sign of insanity and deviance. I'm like, okay, this is one of the things that works is these little when these are your values, what else follows from that?
It almost makes me wish we got get Xavier out of here. Just teach me about the Shi'ar.
You're not wrong. The worst part of the Xavier plotline is Xavier.
Yeah, he's just sort of a wet blanket. This is where we get that Kipling reference. Again, not a great line. No. Possessed of many burdens, none real. Yeah. Which is I mean, it was a very racist poem. He was a very racist guy, but it just, I don't know. He's kind of like the epitome of what online right-wingers think of a lib soy boy.
I mean, kind of.
He's very soft-spoken. He's an educator. He's subservient to his woman. He later on he's given a whole, when he has the super classroom scene, which we'll talk about.
No, we'll get there.
But yeah, he's just you just want him to have something else to him.
When he rattles off a couple of things that are, art is insanity, and they say another thing is insanity, something. All I could think of was, speaking of The Simpsons, that one where the Grandpa Simpson's friend is the substitute teacher's like, oh, that's a paddling, and that's a paddling. Paddling the class canoe, that's a paddling.
I forget the guy's name, but yes.
Yeah, everything's insanity with the Shi'ar.
Yeah, and again, it would be interesting to explore that more, but...
It would. I actually agree with that. I've always kind of liked the Shi'ar stuff in the books, in the cartoon, and this hasn't been my favorite foray with the Shi'ar.
Yeah, so we cut from that back to Storm and Forge. They're at the Union Fort.
Yeah.
There's an interesting thing here. Forge gives his little history background about the fort and where it came from, and then he says the most dangerous weapon the settlers had was a little white lie, that they could make us, and then he coughs.
Yeah.
He doesn't finish his line. And I really wanted to know what he was going to say.
I did too. I wonder if it is where they are trying to tie these two plot lines together. Like what we were talking about before, this idea of we can teach the Kree, we can and educate them if it's like along those lines, because we know that is part of the way the discourse around what the role of the Americans, first as European settlers and then as the Americans pushing westward, like what the proper role was. We'll educate them.
Yeah, we'll tame the savages type thing.
Yes,
you know, that
exactly
whole
that kind of
diatribe. I thought it was very interesting that they cut that off.
Yeah.
It's one of the, again, I don't want to be too harsh this episode, but it was one of the few things in the episode where I was like, ooh, that's interesting. That's an interesting choice they did that.
Yeah, and I even earlier in the same scene, I like the line where someone's like, "Why would you?" After all, they're like, "Why would you let them in here?" And he said, "Well, they said they were here to help." And just the obvious, like, yeah, it was not accurate.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like they're definitely playing with something here where it's like the Shi'ar, are not unlike America.
Yeah.
Not, I mean, you could apply it to tons of countries throughout the history of the world.
Any country that's been colonialist, sure.
Yeah, but it just doesn't work all the way, unfortunately. We then go back to Professor X and Alundra. I like this rite of passage for him as he has to get his mind wiped, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And they start by saying, "Do you renounce this?" It was very much like a baptism.
Yeah, it is basically.
Do you renounce Satan and all of his wicked ways? Reminded me of The Godfather.
And then they are interrupted after he hesitates. He can't forget his X-Men,
His children,
by Deathbird, who's clearly been waiting for this hesitation, waiting in the wings. And when the conflict starts, Xavier has a line was like, "Ma, you are dramatic." And it's like,
yes.
They make him so catty.
Yeah, but not in a fun way.
Not in a fun
Although,
way.
to be fair, I mean, somebody says, I think it's Deathbird, your blood mixed with his inferior freak fluids.
Oh, I had that one written down too.
And then somebody says he's not even a pure Terran, a mutant, a lower class. These people are nuts.
Yeah.
They don't dwell on it, but it is one of those things where, like, when you're really paying attention, you're taking notes and you're writing things down, you're like, man, when you're a racist, you're really out of your mind.
Well, that's and it's right. They don't dwell on it because to them, it's just like, yeah, why wouldn't we say that? Like, it's just.
Yes. Yeah. There's
it's so accepted, the racism. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is where we get the astral plane class.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yeah, let's get into it. It's a bit much. In concept, Xavier using his, being like, I don't have to take this shit from them. I'm a psychic, and like getting them in there and making them listen to him can work, but they made it so patronizingly theatrical that I feel like it doesn't, even to the point of, I think it's a little bit later, but like, demerits, and an apple appears in Deathbird's mouth. I'm like, all right, we get it. You're a teacher. Not once have you ever taught in a traditional classroom like this with a chalkboard and desks.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure, let's go with it.
Yeah, it's, it just, they wanted to be visually interesting, and it's just one of those things where it's like, meh.
Yeah.
But we get back, this part is great. When Storm is crawling through the cave and the adversary is taunting her, adversary says the line, pancaked by the pressure of existing. And I said, amen to that.
Yeah.
I know what that's all about.
Yeah.
But just like the idea of like, believe the lie.
Yes.
And again, when we look at who created the show, wrote the show, directed the show, when we look at these two characters, we have Forge, who's he's part of a native tribe. Mm-hmm. Storm is a black woman, and the adversary is basically saying like, you're weak, you doubted yourself, like how dare you? And so this idea of like taunting her for saying she wanted to be normal, and in turn, like the way that she defeats that is by like becoming even stronger. And the music here is great. It sort of grows as her powers reemerge. Well, she says the line, "Let them thunder, fry and lightning." All this really works.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really does equate assimilation, or even if we want to go specifically, like closeting, as a form of defeat, right? If you deny the truth of everything special about yourself, like that is a death, that is a loss. And you're right. She breaks out of it by embracing all of who she is, not just the convenient parts that she can be safe in.
Yeah, and to have it be like in an enclosed space, which is also, it's like they really do kind of pack a lot into that scene. Yeah. So this is probably the best part of the episode.
Yeah, I'd agree. And on the whole, I think the Storm and Forge plotline works better than the Xavier one.
Yeah, definitely.
Even though I still think both of them, I think, worked better in concept than in execution.
Oh, big time. Yeah, in the Life Death, what really hurt it was just the decision to split it the way they split it, I think. something. If we, or if we, yeah, if only we had worked on it. If they had found a way to make Life Death the breather episode, you know, the maybe Motendo is paired with this Xavier stuff or something. We have episode 5 is what it is. Then we have this.
Oh yeah.
Because this does end with them learning about Genosha. They put the TV on.
Yes.
Although I don't want to miss the fact that we get Storm in this sweet black suit.
Oh, I love that costume.
Now that's your favorite, right? Is that your favorite of hers?
Of the ones that I can call to mind, yes. Although I like it in a different way, but the depowered punk Storm in the 80s is also a great look.
The biker one, yeah.
Yeah, that's also great. But yeah, this might be my favorite. The classic, like it's basically her original costume, really.
I think so, yeah.
And I think it works better for. I have never loved the 90s, the white shoulder
the white
pads.
suit.
I know it's iconic, but I like this one a lot better.
So yeah, this is all great. And so it ends with them, you know, learning about Genosha, which is a nice little moment. Or I mean, not nice, but a sad moment.
Yeah.
You know, and then we goddamn go back to this class, and friggin' Araki is raising his hand to answer a question, to speak up. Like, that's so embarrassing, dude.
It's the whole...
Like, you were just calling this guy an inferior freak, and now you're raising hands in a fake classroom to say something?
This whole thing is embarrassing. And, you know, he's a professor. They couldn't even give him, like, the pretense of it being more like a college lecture hall. No, it's a fucking high school classroom.
This looks like my elementary school.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, it's like...
He's smarmy in it.
Yeah, and I get it, right? Like, the idea of, like, bringing him into the classroom, and he teaches them all about... but even, like, the visuals of, like, oh, you're cutting these civilizations off the knees, and, like, I get it. Like, there's all interesting points there, but
it's kind of... It's goofy.
I mean, imagine being a queen and this dude is doing this to you.
Yeah. And then everyone turns to skeletons. Giant Gambit turns to a skeleton. Oh, yeah, you got something?
Araki, though, there is a great line here where he's like, your idealism would confuse the people. And it's like, this guy just, not only is this guy a racist, but he has no time for the lower castes.
Oh, not at all.
He's like, oh, you're talking all this nonsense. They'd be so confused. Which is ridiculous, but there are people who feel that way.
I don't know, for whatever reason, it made me think of the, you've seen the History of the World Part 1, the Mel Brooks movie?
Of course.
There's the little throwaway part in the Roman Empire where you hear the person make the impassioned plea on, you know, bringing equality and on behalf of the poor, and how do we vote? Fuck the poor! It's like Araki would be an extra in that scene. Yeah.
Exactly right.
I mean, I don't like you. I don't love the voice. There is the line about, like, they were dancing. That is fairly compelling. Like, that's a good line.
Yeah. But again, you know what though? It's weakened because they were dancing, drinking wine, making love. My children of the atom. Like, you're calling them the children of the atom. Like,
true.
It's just such a weird...
It's paternalistic.
But not only that, it's like in this moment of despair.
Yes.
That's the thing you're going to drop. It's like saying the line of the movie at like this height of emotion. You know what I mean? It's like it's
you're specifically saying the children of the atom. Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with you.
It's really only worked once, and that's when Bill Pullman says, this is our Independence Day. Like, other than that, it never works. It never works when somebody says the title of the movie.
Yeah, that's true. I was trying to think of a good, like, ridiculous example, and my brain is just going blank on film titles. That would be especially horrible to do that with.
It truly was Schindler's List. You know, nobody's saying that in that movie.
True. I really am the Englishman who went up a hill and came down a mountain.
Is that the name of a movie?
I think it is. Is it Hugh Grant? Something like that. I never saw it. I worked in a video store, so I saw a lot of movie boxes.
My dream job. I never got to do it.
Best high school job. Loved it. Doesn't even exist anymore.
I know. Don't even get me started. There are people on this earth who I would gladly get rid of if it meant we could just bring back video stores.
I mean, yeah. Sure. Yeah, we'll take the video stores back on top of that. Sure.
Yeah.
Twist my arm, why don't you? Yeah, so that the scene happens. He's going to go back to Earth, of course. This was just moving the set pieces so that he could.
Yeah,
moving the
pieces. We do end on a nice cliffhanger.
Yes, we do. We get Bolivar Trask looking like hell. He's had better days running down the street.
Yeah, he's worse for wear here.
Yeah, freaked out. The reveal at the end of the episode is sinister. And knowing what we know now about what is to come, I am actually quite satisfied with the real machinations are, who the real string puller is. and how Sinister fits into that, I'm good with. But when it felt, the first time I saw this episode back right when it came out, when I was like, Sinister? No, come on. We know it. Give me something else. Give me something more than Sinister. Yeah. I was like, yeah.
I wasn't sure. I don't remember how I felt the first time, but I've always liked Sinister.
Yeah.
So
I do. I don't know. It didn't.
Yeah. We had already seen him, and
who it turns out to be, which we don't have to talk about now because it's revealed in the next episode, but I think is a better fit. And I'm getting ahead of us. This is cheating people out of enjoying the next episode.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this episode, combined with the fact that it's 10:30 at night, it has made it hard to get through. But probably the weakest of the lot. But even then, we still get that storm moment where the music is like the drums are beating and she bursts through and she's flying with the horses. Or, she's flying and the horses are running.
Yep.
That really works.
Agreed.
We get the sweet costume.
We do.
The Sinister reveal is fun, but luckily we've gotten past this, and from here on out,
I don't
know if it's necessarily like everything gets better and better and better, but we do get a string of really good episodes coming up.
Oh yeah, from here it takes off at a sprint and it doesn't slow down. Yeah, buckle up because the best, well, compared to this, the best is yet to come. Compared to some of the other really good episodes, also good is yet to come.
Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Me too. And now, Brett, I had prepared something last time.
Oh yes,
that we didn't do because it just felt not appropriate given the episode and the discussion that went with it. So, John, you're listening. I would have loved to play this with you, Brett, and you together. But Brett, I would like to play a game of Would You Rather Mutant Edition with you.
Oh God.
And the way this is going to work is I will read 2 descriptions of mutant abilities, and you can tell me which you would prefer to have.
I like this.
All right. And follow-up questions are allowed.
Let's do it.
All right. Would you rather be able to teleport, but not a single hair on your body survives the trip with you, and you smell like burnt hair for hours?
Oh, no.
Or you can shoot a freeze ray, but only from your butthole, and your butt cheeks are only slightly cold resistant.
No, only slightly cold resistant. What is this freeze ray? What is the capability of this freeze ray?
Oh, it's think of like an Iceman ice beam kind of thing. Just straight out of the
But
South Pole.
Iceman is pretty powerful.
He is.
So is this a pretty powerful butt ice beam?
It depends on how powerful your butt is.
Oh boy.
What's that butt do?
Here's the thing. As an older guy, being able to just cool down your butt.
Oh, if you can crank it down to minimum.
And you just concentrate a little bit. It's like, oh my God. You know what? After having steak last night, the pain is gone.
You're right, though. A hot day being stuck in a chair that's too warm, to be able to turn that on.
Oh, I mean, it might be weird to produce some ice cubes and just like, but
right.
I think I'm going ice butt.
Ice butt it is. Very good. All right, next. Option 1. Your blood smells like fresh baked cookies, which also in real life I think might mean you have diabetes. Option 2. You can psychically slap the face of people, but always 2 at a time, and it's one person you dislike and one person you like as much as you dislike the other.
Ooh. I mean, the blood thing doesn't really benefit me in any way whatsoever.
It doesn't, but it doesn't really harm you either. It's a low.
When you say psychically slap,
yeah, like a telekinetic.
Telekinetic. Okay,
like an invisible slap just goes across the face of the two people.
I'm gonna get the slap thing because here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go to the person I like.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say, listen, why don't we pick a person to slap together? But you're gonna have to take a slap for the team.
Will you let them deliver just a standard mundane slap to your own face to even it out?
Maybe, sure.
Just
if they feel like they have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm looking at this not as a slap to a person I like, but as an opportunity for a conversation starter. Who do we want to telekinetically slap that you also have to deal with the backlash of this, but we can enjoy the fact this person's getting slapped. And if there's like a live event, maybe a certain politicians are giving a speech, and it's like, now is the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, consider this face fair game.
That'd be a lot of fun.
So the slaps?
The slaps.
All right.
Big time.
Option 1, you can cure any disease at will, but each time you do, everyone else believes a new horrible rumor about you. Or you have incredible eyesight, but you permanently have the reading level of a first grader.
You know what? I'm going to go with the first one because what do I care about my own reputation? Who am I? I'm a nobody.
You could save it
up. So if
up.
you want to believe nonsense about me, you go ahead and you believe it.
You save it up for you.
I'm the man who cured cancer, damn it. Who cares if you...
But I heard he fudged the couch.
but That guy, he has ice up his butt.
Oh, well, hey, sometimes rumors come from somewhere. You have superhuman allure and get to have sex every day, but you have to have sex every day without exception or you will die. Or,
Oh, no.
Or you can turn into a cat whenever you want, but you always have to use a litter box even when you're human.
I can't be tied to a litter box. Because if I'm out somewhere, I gotta bring a litter box with me.
Or hope that someone has a cat.
It's just that can't be done.
All right.
I mean, of course, I'm also married, so the sex every day with. Oh, I guess I could just have it with my lovely wife.
Of course
right?
you can.
Or does it have to be with a different person?
No, it can be with whoever.
But you know what though? When you have kids, it's hard to do it every day.
It's hard, but now your life is on the line.
Yeah, that's a lot of stress.
It is.
But is it as stressful as having to go bathroom and being like, oh no, I can't find a litter box?
And Brett, that's the game. If it was easy choices, it would suck as a game.
If I was single, the sex thing would be great.
I think
It'd be no
married,
contest.
it's good too.
Yeah, but I mean the pressure when you have a full-time job
Yeah.
and kids and everything, it just doesn't work out that way.
Well, fair enough. You can talk to and understand animals, but it turns out they're really fucking annoying and will not shut up about their dumb hot takes. Or you can conjure anything into existence, but you do so by permanently removing a commensurate amount of joy from the universe.
Oh no, I'm a big fan of joy. I mean, I'll talk to the pets, the animals, because I can just ignore them. I ignore stupid shit all the time. I have kids. The amount of nonsense I ignore on a daily basis.
You know, Brett,
is
you've told me about some of the conversations you have with some other friends in your life, and I guess it's probably going to be pretty similar.
oh my God! Listen,
God, this
the
owl
places
won't
I've
shut
come
the
from.
fuck up about crypto.
The where I was raised, the people that I grew up with, the things they say are so dumb.
Yeah, except you,
And
listener.
I mean,
if it's whoever's listening, he's not talking about you.
No, not you specifically, but the person you grew up with.
Oh,
you remember them.
What a dumb shit.
And I've been on social media, so I've listened to Sports Talk Radio. I've been inundated with bad takes for the past decade.
All right, last one I got here.
What do we got?
Option A is your tear ducts are mammary glands, so you cry milk.
I almost spit out my water.
Or is it milk? Or every time you fart, everyone you know gets a notification on their phone with detailed information on the volume, duration, smell, moisture content, etc. And a shart makes the Amber Alert sound happen.
Oh God, yeah, I gotta go with the mammary tears
The milky tears.
because I can't be bothering people that often. You know what? People are trying to sleep. It's like 11:30, and it's like, oh, by the way,
Yep.
Brett had some Raisin Bran before he went to bed tonight because he didn't eat enough for dinner, and so he succumbed to a midnight snack.
I love it. All right, and that's all the ones I came up with for Would You Rather Mutant Edition.
I loved it. That's all that's fit to print.
Excellent.
I had quite a blast with that.
I'm glad. And again, John, wish you could have played with us, but it just seemed inappropriate at
Next time.
the hour and whatever 45-minute mark when we were all emotionally exhausted.
We can have John back for another episode, and we can play that game again.
Awesome. And that, I think, is going to do it. That's the conversation about X-Men 97 Episode 6, Lifedeath Part 2. And that'll be it for us this... Oh, I see you're getting ready for it. You're getting ready for it. We'll see you next time! Our theme song was written and recorded by Cheer Captain. Find Cheer Captain at cheercaptain.bandcamp.com. To contact Matt or Brett, email us at manchildrenoftheatom@gmail.com.